All right, Salaam Alaikum, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on the Day of Outrage, where we aim to stand in solidarity with our African American brothers and sisters and to denounce racism in our world. We want to provide education and resources to the greater SABA community and anyone who may be interested in joining us today. We appreciate your support and hope that this event will unify us, given the current situation in the world. Throughout the event, you can send us your questions by texting 510-497-4972 or type questions in the live chat and we will address it at the end of the event. Please see the links below to sign petitions as well as organizations that would really appreciate your donation. Bismillah. All right, everyone, my name is Zara Abbas and I will be hosting the Day of Outrage program tonight. I would first like to thank everyone from our community and many other communities around the country for taking the time to come to this incredible event. To start our program, we will have a Quran recitation followed by translation provided by Brother Mohsen Rangwala. Brother Mohsen, when you're ready.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قالوا سبحانك أنت ولينا من دونهم بل كانوا يعبدون الجن أكثرهم بهم مؤمنون فاليوم لا يملك بعضكم لبعض نفعا ولا ضرا ونقول للذين ظلموا ذوقوا عذاب النار التي كنتم بها تكذبون وإذا تتلى عليهم آياتنا بينات قالوا ما هذا إلا رجل يريد أن يصدكم عما كان يعبد آباؤكم وقالوا ما هذا إلا إفك مفترى وقال الذين كفروا للحق لما جاءهم إن هذا إلا سحر مبين وما آتيناهم من كتب يدرسونها وما أرسلنا إليهم قبلك من نذير وكذب الذين من قبلهم وما بلغوا معشار ما آتيناهم فكذبوا رسلي فكيف كان نكير قل إنما أعظكم بواحدة أن تقوموا لله مثنى وفرادا ثم تتفكروا ما بصاحبكم من جنة إن هو إلا نذير لكم بين يدي عذاب شديد قل ما سألتكم من أجر فهو لكم إن أجري إلا على الله وهو على كل شيء شهيد قل إن ربي يقذف بالحق علام الغيوب قل جاء الحق وما يبدئ الباطل وما يعيد قل إن ضللت فإنما ضل على نفسي وإن اهتديت فبما يوحي إلي ربي إنه سميع قريب صدق الله العلي العظيم. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. They will say, exalted are you, O Allah, our benefactor, not them. Rather, they used to worship the jinn. Most of them were believers in them. But today you do not hold for one another the power of benefit or harm. And we will say to those who wronged, taste the punishment of the fire, which you used to deny. And when our verses are recited to them as clear evidences, they say, this is not but a man who wishes to avert you from that which your fathers were worshipping. And they say, this is not except a lie invented. And those who disbelieve say of the truth when it has come to them, this is not but obvious magic. And we had not given them any scriptures which they could study, and we had not sent them to you, we had not sent to them before you, O Muhammad, any warner. And those before them denied, and the people of Mecca had not attained a tenth of what we had given them. But the former peoples denied my messengers, so how terrible was my reproach. Say, I only advise you of one thing, that you stand for Allah seeking truth in pairs and individually, and then give thought. There is not in your companion any madness. He is only a warner to you before a severe punishment. Say, whatever payment I might have asked of you, it is yours. My payment is only from Allah, and He is over all things witness. Say, indeed, my Lord projects the truth, knower of the unseen. Say, the truth has come, and falsehood can neither begin anything nor repeat it. Say, if I should err, I would only err against myself. But if I am guided, it is by what my Lord reveals to me. Indeed, He is hearing and near. Sadaqallahu al-Aliyyul Azim.
Thank you, Brother Mohsen, for the beautiful recitation. And let me just share my screen. Okay. As the viral videos continue to expose the incessant streams of murders taking place against members of the African American community, including Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd, this day of outrage serves as a moment for us to reaffirm and restate our unyielding commitment to anti-Blackness and our firm opposition to police brutality. Importantly, as Muslims, our beliefs are built upon standing up against oppression and injustice. In saying this, we want to extend our deepest condolences for those murdered at the hand of police and racist vigilantes by reciting Surah Al-Fatiha. Brother Hashim, if you could please lead us in a recitation.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين صدق الله ما صلى على محمد أجل.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm proud to share that we are a part of a larger coalition that is following the call of Isla LA, a masjid in Los Angeles. They have called upon the mosques in the United States to designate today, June 5th, as a day of outrage. Although we are unable to make a physical event, we know many of our community members have participated in a program across the Bay Area. We wanted to acknowledge that you have tuned in today for our online day of outrage, and that is something that we are very proud of. We and mosques across the nation are using our platform and privilege to highlight the injustices that have been occurring and to stand in unyielding solidarity with our African American brothers and sisters. Racism is taught through a system that upholds the ideology of white supremacy. It is not something that any of us are inherently born with. We hope that everyone takes away an important lesson by our speakers from educational to historical significance. We also hope that you apply one of these lessons into your own lives and proactively do something about the injustices our fellow African American brothers and sisters face. As followers of the Ahlul Bayt and awaiters of Imam Mahdi, we must stand as beacons of hope and dedicate our efforts to creating a world we are proud to hand down to our future generations. So I'm honored to introduce our first speaker for today, Brother Hashim Ali Shabazz. Brother Hashim has graduated from UC Berkeley in Islamic education and attended Madrasa Imam Khomeini in Qom. He has been active with members of the BPP and the late Malcolm Shabazz. He is now the director of Medina Academy and Shabazz Village. He has also worked with Colin Kaepernick and Jaylen Brown from the Boston Celtics. Brother Hashim will now discuss the historical significance of the African American liberation movement and how that contributes to the current events taking place right now. When you're ready, Brother Hashim.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمد عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد عجل فرجهم. Okay, hang on one second here. All right, thank you. Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I want to thank the people who put this on, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you for, as the Messenger of Allah alayhi salam said, that every action is based on intention. And so the intention that the young people at SABA under the leadership of Maulana Abadi have done, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward them, and may Imam Zaman alayhi salam look at this as really, for a lot of people, a first step in preparing themselves for his advent. I think, unfortunately, many of us talk about we want him to come, but we're not prepared. And these are the type of things I think prepare us to understanding. Now, for a new generation of people who may be on here watching, I don't really know the demographics of who's watching right now. So I gotta kind of mix it up and everything. But I want to start off with ayat al-Quran. Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Fa'ayna tadhabuna. And he asks this question, and where are you going in the Quran? It's where are you going? And then later on, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says what? He says, and to your Lord is the goal. And so I say, because everything we do should be moving us towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then I want to say, my speech, I want to formulate around the saying of Imam Jafar al-Sadiq alayhi salam, was that kullu yawmin ashara wa kullu ardin karbala. Every day is ashara and every land is Karbala. Now you might start saying, oh, here we go. I thought this was about Black lives, and he's talking about Karbala, Imam Hussein. And I will say this, and I'll talk about it later on, but I'm gonna say it now. I was gonna say it at the end, but I'm gonna say it at the beginning because it makes sense to me. I emailed a brother in Qom one time recently. I said, oh man, the brothers are doing stuff and this and everything. And he says, man, I wish brothers Shias would understand what they should be doing this time. I said, well, the problem is a lot of Shias do not know the line of Imam Khomeini, rahmatullah. And he went back and said, no, brother, they don't know who Imam Hussein is. They can't understand Imam Khomeini rahmatullah until they first understand really, really, truly what is Ashur. Instead of being a cultural expression, what is the essence of it and what are we doing? And so I want to start off with that and understand that everything I'm talking about, it leads back to Karbala. One time when I first took Shahada, somebody said, it says Imam Hussein was Sayyid al-Shahada, the master of all martyrs. And I was like, well, hang on for a minute, man. I got it, I accept that, but there were other martyrs after Imam Hussein. So I was trying to understand what made him the Sayyid, the best of martyrs. And he said something beautiful. He said, because of his understanding, he said, for every person who is martyred after Imam Hussein, it is as though they're at Karbala. If you think deeply about it, that is an incredible concept that we understand that everything going on today, Imam Hussein is connected to it. Imam Zaman is connected. Imam Hussein in the past, Imam Mahdi going forward. So I start to say it because as I talk about African liberation and African struggles, that we understand that the Quran tells stories of the past. Story of Yusuf, story of Moses. So stories are told to us in the Quran for us to help go forward. So understanding the past helps us to go forward if we make the connection. And there is a connection with African liberation of the past till today. And many of the people on TV, they're not making the connection to the past. The reason they don't want to make the connection to the past, because if they do, it shows a light of that a lot of people who are protesting now and a lot of people who are for Black lives, culturally, they were not for Black lives in the past. And so, alhamdulillah, if they're getting there, but the historical aspect of it is no. Historically, white supremacy and systemic racism and oppression is from the beginning. And once you start opening the past, you're going to open up and see the true light of what was going on and how we got here. And so, I can't go through all the history. So let me suggest this. I'm going to start off with slavery. And I'm going to give a couple little points. If you got a pen and paper, because you're at home, please write down if you're young, because I'm a teacher by trade, so take notes. And a lot of things I'm going to talk about, just take some notes, because in 30 minutes, I'm not going to do any justice to this, but I do believe I can leave some crumbs that you could eat, God willing, and inshallah, those crumbs will lead you to open the door and learn more. So as a teacher, that's one. Now, I say it because one of the things that if we talk about what can we be doing today and they're not doing it yet, back in the 60s and going on from the 70s, the 80s, even the 90s, at UC Berkeley, when people had protests, they had a thing called teach-ins. So you would go and sit down, instead of sitting down, taking a knee and fighting the cops, you would sit down and somebody would sit and have a group of 20 students and they would educate them on what's going on. Inshallah, maybe in the future when coronavirus is done, at SABA, you guys can start having sit-ins or people can come in and talk more deeply about each issue in order to educate everybody about the historical things going on, okay? So I'll start off with that. But I'm gonna start with slavery first. And I'm gonna use it from the Islamic perspective. I wrote a paper, one of my papers at UC Berkeley, our PhD program, was African resistance through literacy. And some of the biggest revolutionary movements that took place to fight against systemic oppression and racism and the killing of slaves were the Muslims. In Brazil, the majority of the people who raised the revolt were Hausa and Yoruba Muslim Africans who came as slaves. And they organized. And in the books I read, the book that they used was Quran. Somebody else Hafiz of Quran, he memorized Quran. So the Quran and a Risala, they had like a Risala of Imam Malik. The Risala and the Quran became the foundation of how to launch revolutions and movements that were based on Quran and Sunnah. And I say it because you should understand that African movements that were fighting for racial equality or racial justice started off many times with the Muslim slaves who came here. Now, I'm going to use the word slave a little differently here because I love Frantz Fanon. You guys know, right? His name, Frantz Fanon, F-A-N-O-N. He is a big scholar and revolutionary who helped Algerians in the revolution. Well, Fanon said this. He said, language is important because language shapes how you think. So sometimes when I'm talking to my students, I say, what were Black people back in the day in America? And they would say slaves. And I say, no, we shouldn't use the word slaves. We should use the words captives. They say, why? I said, because a slave means you're bondage to somebody else. A captive means that one time you were free and somebody incarcerated you or enslaved you. And so it's important to get the psychological aspect of our language around this. When we say Blackness, African-American, slave, all these allies, all these things have languages that we must understand the language in order to get a perfect, better picture going forward. And so during slavery time, quote unquote slavery time, a lot of the captives rebelled and they fought and a lot of them got their freedom. Some of the people who fought was like Denmark Vesey, Gabriel Prosser, Nat Turner, who all executed revolutionaries and uprisings against the slave master. Denmark Vesey, Nat Turner in 1831. There's a movie called Birth of a Nation you can watch. He was very successful, but he didn't complete it, but he rose up. Denmark Vesey, interesting thing about Denmark Vesey is that I have a book on Denmark Vesey. He waged a revolution. He was going to have an uprising in South Carolina, and somebody snitched on him. Tattletale on him, and he went and they killed him. Now look at this is deep. In the book, it said this: when Denmark Vesey was in Charleston, the language of the market was Arabic. Very interesting. The language in South Carolina was all Arabic. Why? Because Arabic was the language of commerce. So in Africa, many Africans spoke different languages and they had their first tribal language, but Arabic was the common language that was used, right, in order to communicate. So it shows that it was a presence of the Muslims and the uprisings of these things. Now, what I find interesting was, and we'll go back to that inshallah later, is that they were not allowed to mourn Denmark Vesey, meaning they chopped his body up in pieces, they buried him in different places, and they said the Africans could not wear black, nor could they mourn him because they felt that mourning him would also lead to a revolution. Now, come on, brothers and sisters, what does that sound like? That's Ashura. That's Muharram. This is the same thing where we mourn Imam Hussein to continue to what? To understand the uprising. So here we have the American system saying, don't let those Black people mourn the people who got killed. And what we're really witnessing today is the mourning of George Floyd. Let's be honest with you. Maybe it's not the way we mourn, but it's a mourning ceremony. And the mourning ceremony is sending people to the streets. So I'm saying because there's a connection with Hussein ibn Ali, alayhi salam, and what's going on. Now, after the slavery, moving on, we get to 1865 when the captives were finally, quote unquote, free. And what the United States government did was they came up with the 13th and 14th Amendments. We'll focus on the 13th Amendment. And there's a Netflix movie called 13. You should watch it. It's very good. And it talks about how when Black people were, after the Civil War, slavery was never banned in America. It said, you say slavery is, you're free unless you commit a crime. So they banned chattel slavery, but you yourself, if you commit a crime, you go to jail. So we look at the African-American population in prison before Civil War, it's very low because they were on plantations. When we look at after the Civil War, it goes up. So now we see that the system itself was created to make sure African-American people stay what? In chattel slavery or some form of slavery. So this was being fought against. So they fought against that. So never was there a time when Black people weren't fighting for their freedom, from slavery to 1865 to Jim Crow law. They've always been in the process of fighting in order to get their rights. Like you say, what do you mean rights? Well, for those of you guys who may be lawyers, you know that there's a thing called the Dred Scott case, right? And in the Dred Scott case, it's very important that, like for me, people disagree with me, that's fine. I think that Judge Taney, who made the ruling for the Dred Scott case, that Dred Scott was not a human, but he was subhuman, I agree with him 100%. I don't agree that Dred Scott is not a human, but I agree that his ruling was correct, because he ruled that the United States government was not made for African people. It was made for white people. It wasn't even made for women. It wasn't even made, it was made, and so Dred Scott fell in that case. Why is it important? Because in that case, there's a thing that says this, it's very beautiful. They gave an example of saying that if you were walking around at nighttime in Massachusetts, right, and you were Black, you could not be outside. You had to be inside, except if you were a Moor and a subject of the Moorish Empire. So if you're African Muslim and you identified yourself as a Muslim with the Moors, you can never be a slave. No one talks about that. You see what I'm coming from? That understanding the rights of your Moorish background. Many Africans didn't know the law, and that caused a problem. But I say that because when we look at how African peoples have joined, they've always been fighting. And so when Harriet Tubman fought, you had some white people, the abolitionists. They fought with it. One of the baddest white men ever on earth is John Brown. John Brown led a revolution, and they got killed at Harper's Ferry fighting for what? For Black people. And the reason I mention it now is because there were a lot of Blacks and whites who worked together to fight against the institution of slavery. Now, they weren't protesting and taking knees and running the street. They actually were engaging in real war. They were engaging in fighting, right? Or even Frederick Douglass, they were writing, so they were engaged in fighting systematic racism. They weren't fighting racism. They're fighting the system of racism and trying to build human rights. Well, unfortunately, those movements didn't grow as they could have. They got free. People after 1865, the laws changed. And then after the laws changed, Jim Crow came in, and you all know what Jim Crow was. You had a white toilet and a Black toilet, a white faucet and a Black faucet. So again, inequality. Because what happened was African-Americans still never became citizens. So the law made you a citizen, but you never were treated like a citizen. And why is that? Because as Muslims, we should know, you cannot legislate, make a law to make somebody not a racist. So just because you make the law to say you're not racist don't mean, oh, some white guy, like, oh man, they made a new law, I can't be racist no more. I'm sorry, it don't work that way. You know what I'm saying? Racism is something in the heart of somebody. So what happened was those racists created things like the Ku Klux Klan. And they went out and there was white and Black people and they were lynching. By 1919, it was a bloody summer. They were lynching Black men left and right. If you look online, you can find pictures of white people having picnics with Black men lynched and they're watching it. So to me, when you historically contextualize what's going on today, it's really not that bad. It's bad, but they were getting lynched and no one said nothing. But in that time frame, you had people like Noble Drew Ali, who had a pseudo form of Islam, but it was Islam, but it had some other stuff in it. You had the Nation of Islam, which had some pseudo stuff in it, but it was the idea of Islam. But what the main thing all of them had in common was they were trying to fight racism through Islam. Even if their understanding of Islam was not correct, they were going through the process trying to fight it. And as they went and fought on everything, they kept going and they said things and they organized. So that was that. Now, moving kind of fast, I know, unfortunately, because of my time frame, make sure I'm on time, and get to the part where we get to the civil rights movement and Black liberation struggle. And I just want to focus on that because the thing that started is just like the death of George Floyd. There was a young man, look him up, by the name of Emmett Till. In 1954, Emmett Till was killed by some white people. They say he whistled at a white woman. They beat him up. They beat him to a pulp. His head, little boy. His mom took him to Chicago. She gave him an open casket funeral. Now you say, why did she do that? Because there was a medium that was just starting up back then, just like Twitter's and the Instagram are today. The medium back then was television. And when they showed that picture of that Black man, boy being killed and the way he was killed, it increased the revolution of the movement of the civil rights movement. It sparked it because people heard about racism, but they saw something that threw everybody in flux. And that became the catalyst. Then when they blew up and killed those 4 little black girls in church, in 16th Street Baptist Church, it increased. So every time black youth were getting killed, it increased the movement. And so the civil rights struggle by Dr. King, it kept moving, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then they continued to protest and they got free. Now I want to move on in the short minutes of time. Just going to take some water, everyone. And talk about 2 people because it's important tonight. Malcolm X and Imam Khomeini. And I mention that because they both have a lot of things in common when it comes to African-American struggles. One, in 1963, on June 5th, which happens to be today, which happened back then to be the 12th of Muharram, Imam Khomeini, rapporteur on the 15th of Qur'an, gave a speech at the masjid and started a revolution that we saw ended with the Inqilab in 1979. It's interesting. Today's the 15th of Qur'an. Also, we remember the anniversary. And so he had a mindset where the Imam was above and beyond being a Persian, even though he worked in the Persian Institute and area where people were Persian, but he was a revolutionary, like you know what I'm saying, Imam Mahdi was global, but he understood the particulars of what he was doing. But he always identified global struggles. Malcolm X in 1963 left the Nation of Islam and left to Real Islam. Then when he left Real Islam, look at this. Malcolm X went to where? He went to Hajj. And at the Hajj, he says, every chance I got at Mecca to tell the whole world about the injustices that were happening to black people. Why? He wasn't saying he was against other ones. His job was to tell about black injustice and what was going on. Now look at this. What is Imam Khomeini said? He said the Hajj should be used for the Muslims to talk about all of our social political problems going around the world. Look, they're both using Hajj as a way of what? Of going forward and everything. And so I said because when we look at Imam Khomeini and Malcolm X, we realize all the things that they have in common, right? Another one that we look at is the fact that when we looked at racism, Imam Khomeini spoke against racism too. I'll give you an example. We know Malcolm X did, that's a giver. But many people don't know that after the Inqilab, Imam Khomeini kicked out the Israelis and changed the Israeli embassy to the Palestinian embassy. That makes sense, don't it? All the Muslims, but a lot of people don't talk about he took the South African racist government's embassy, kicked them out, and let Nelson Mandela use it for the ANC. Well, why? Well, they're not even Muslims. Because he is thinking about consciousness and revolutionaries and pushing forward a different agenda for everybody, right? When they took the hostages in 1979, Imam Khomeini said, let the women go because they should do it to mothers. He said, let the blacks go because the blacks themselves, they're oppressed over there. So we see that there's always African Americans and struggling together. So when we look at Malcolm X, he was pushing forward. Now after Malcolm X, we have what we call the Black Panther Party. She said the DPP, now this life, the Black Panther Party for self-defense, which was started in Oakland, California. And one of the first people in the Black Panther Party of self-defense that was martyred was little Bobby Hutton. Now, little Bobby Hutton was martyred and everything. He stood up. But again, I know Bobby Seale. I was talking to him the other day, hours. I love talking to Brother Bobby. And he said, man, I had 400 people in the Black Panther Party. When they killed little Bobby, he said, we went from 400 to 4,000 like this. Why? Because it's a sacrifice. It's like martyrdom. You get martyred, martyrs. But Shaheed Mutahari said the blood of a martyr engages the society. And so when we look at the people who died, when their death is connected to love, connected to a law, therefore connected to human rights, you start to see a big change in society and how things go. Now, I say it because when the Panthers came out, they were crushed by COINTELPRO, which you can look up, which was an organization by the FBI to destroy Black liberation struggles. And they had many people who are still incarcerated today. Jalil Abdul-Muttaqin, Dr. Matulu Shakur, right? Zayd Malik Shakur, right? Sister Asada Shakur is in exile. There are a lot of Muslims who have struggled. Russell Schultz, they are Muslims who have struggled and they are still fighting. And no one's mentioning them. Everybody say their name. What about these Muslims who are incarcerated and the people back in the day who died fighting for justice? It's not like they didn't go away. But we don't do that because when we remember Shahid Beheshti and Shahid Ul-Hadar and Shahid Rajai, we remember, Shahid, all the Shahada in Iran because we remember the Shahid remembers the going forward. They remember theirs, they forget. But all of a sudden the Black struggle died a little bit and then it came back in the form of hip hop. Hip hop music, for those who want to know what real hip hop was, it focused on social justice. That's what it was about. In 1980, 89, when I'm listening to Public Enemy, I'm listening to X-Clan, I'm listening to conscious music. I'm listening to music that is constantly telling me to move and do positive stuff, right? And then all of a sudden, make a long story short, it went down and it went to hiding and it went down underground. Now, I think it's conscious, but you guys, the young people, you are victims of a music that is full of debauchery, sin, and straight nihilism. Now, for the young people out there who don't got the deen and listen to music, and I see them going, even though they got all this foolish music, they are still connected in their fitra to see justice. So when they see what happened to George Floyd and all the other people being killed, and Oscar Grant, their nature is saying, no, this ain't right. And so I said, because at the same time, we have to realize that this younger generation who's going out there and everything, they themselves have to come up. When you look at Tupac Shakur, you understand that Brother Tupac was raised a Muslim. He wasn't around the Muslims all the time. His family were martyred Muslims. But he spoke of a consciousness in some of his music, right? But then when he died, all of a sudden, again, things went down. And so I say it because I want to end with saying that when we look at the things that are going on today, there's a lot to study. There's a lot more to talk about. But I just want to say that the rage that you guys talk about, the rage that the people have is the rage that we should have when they martyr our Muslim brothers and sisters. The rage that we have when we see problems in Palestine. The rage we have when we see things that are happening in India, in you know the area, in Gujarat, right? When they go in the Punjab and all these places, or Afghanistan, in Africa, in Asia, all over the world. It's different, but the essence of human rights is there. We have to be able to unify and understand each of the things and get in and support one another, but know we are unified and fighting for Allah's fi sabilillah. The Quran says jihad fi sabilillah. And that jihad doesn't mean looting. That jihad doesn't have to mean looting and killing and shooting. It can mean just speaking the true word or educating somebody on something that's true. And we cannot educate nobody on nothing until we first educate ourselves. And we must first start educating ourselves on what is racism. And if you want to look at the essence of racism in America amongst whites and blacks, I guarantee you, without a doubt, you can go to India, if you're from India and Pakistan, and understand what the British did over there and how the caste system. It's not you can go to Africa, you can go to Europe, you can go around and realize that the colonial powers have created a racist mentality. You're just witnessing it in America for over 400 years. So should we support human rights? I don't even know why Muslims would even say that, because that's part of La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, Ali Waliullah. I mean, it is a foundational aspect of our religion, and it's definitely part of Man Kuntu Mola Fahada Ali Mola. This is one of the most important things of Walayat. Walayat keeps us connected to social justice, and Walayat keeps us connected to universal fighting for injustice. And Allah in the Quran says, stand up for justice, even if it's against your own selves. So my question to the community is, do we have any racism in us? Because we must fight it exteriorly and interior. So I'm going to end with this because I found this on my line. It's 2 minutes. This is what Sayyid Khamenei has said concerning what we can do in this situation, because he addressed it. He said, educate yourself, familiarize yourself with oppression and racism that occurs on a daily basis in your community. And then after that, he says, educate others. Tell other people about what's going on, even if have the uncomfortable conversation that needs to be had. We don't do that in Mosque, do we? We don't want to stay. He says, Khamenei says, do that. And the last one says, take action. Be conscious when you spend your money, support Black businesses, and speak up when you witness oppression or racism, especially when it happens in your community and even in your masjid. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you so much, Brother Hashim, for that incredibly thought-provoking speech. We'll now move on to Maulana Abdi. So Maulana Abdi has been the leader of our community for several years. He has extensive experience in guiding community through many tragedies. At a time when our hearts are so heavy dealing with the pandemic that has devastated so many people, a time when we had to switch online programs during Ramadan, at a time when our hearts are heavy with sorrow, we seek to unify our community, and what better leader to guide us than Maulana Abdi? We definitely look up to him as members of the SABA community in guiding us through these difficult times. Maulana Abdi will discuss the roots of injustice and how racism manifests in our communities and public spaces. When you're ready, Maulana.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين. First and foremost, I would like to thank Sister Zahra and all the sisters and brothers in SABA Center and also different platforms, those who put together this beautiful program in order to demonstrate our duties and responsibilities and also our solidarity and our help for those who are looking for. In fact, this help is not for others. It will come to us because what goes around comes around. And also, I'd like to thank Sister Zahra for her, I don't deserve what she said about me, but thank you for being so kind to me. And also, I'd like to thank Brother Hashim, as always, is one of my favorite, mashallah. And when he talks from his heart. And when something comes from heart, it gets to the heart. That is something I learned from him, mashallah. Let's focus on today's event and what is happening right now. And also a little bit I would like to talk and discuss about the roots of that. Yes, when we hear that once again, George Floyd was brutally killed in a way no one can expect him. And the 3 other police officers, those who were watching and looking and did nothing. And people around that screaming, and the person, George himself, pleading for help repeatedly without any threat and treating that way, that reminds us what is going on, why is that? And then after that, the reaction from different communities and people here in the United States and around the globe, that ignites. So now we have to think, what is happening? Why is that? Is this the first time in the history we are watching or we are witness of such injustice? Or it's more to add and talk and discuss. So I'd like to, inshallah, focus on some of the roots of that. Brothers and sisters, when we talk and discuss about these types of things, these are the symptoms, right? Whether the what is happening here, or even in Middle East, when you go and you see more than 7 decades in Palestine, all those unhumane discrimination, racism happen, or in Yemen, or in Bangladesh, or in Kashmir, or in Burma, or in China. List can go on and on and on, all of that. Why is that? If we pay attention to this a little bit more, we'll find out that these are the symptoms. And if we don't tackle to the roots, and if we were not able to take out the weeds of these destructions from its roots, we'll see the repeated behavior of mankind, and there's not going to be end. Why? Because trimming the branches of the oppression or injustice or inequality or racism will not resolve the problem. We need to find out and educate ourselves and others what are the roots of that, and then you need to take out all these weeds from these roots, its roots, and then you can see, inshallah, better result. So now, I would like to begin with, mashallah, beautiful ayah from the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ خَلْقُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافِ أَلْسِنَتِكُمْ وَأَلْوَانِكُمْ إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِلْعَالِمِينَ. And among his signs, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala signs, is the creation of heavens and earth, and the variations in your languages and your colors. Surely in that are signs for those who precise. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the different, reality which exists, which is when we speak, when we demonstrate, when we talk, when we appear, and when people just see our colors, our race, or whatever, all of that, it is the reality of mankind. from the day it first exists, right? So each and every one of us, we are unique, and all of us are valuable and equal. As Quran in other ayahs repeated, that all of us before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala equal. No one has any superiority to announce that I'm better than others. So in that context, if you see the roots of injustice, roots of racism, roots of this inequality, roots of certain behavior people they have towards other people, it's very important. The first root is when certain group or a people, a person, a group of people, they feel that I'm a super to other people. I have a superiority to other people. In whatever context you say it, right? So this mentality itself will give people or those group of people authority to unjust others, whether race, color, gender, ethnicity, language, what you call it. The moment I feel that I'm a superiority, I have some extra leverage for other people, that itself lead to lots of these types of behavior, unacceptable behavior. Let me be open and blunt. Brothers and sisters, we have two types of diseases. One types of disease is what we call it the ruhi, or that goes to the very important point about the inner part. One is physical diseases. Physical diseases, like for example, right now, all of us, we are battling with novel corona or COVID-19, a pandemic situation, which is a huge problem for mankind. That is going to affect our body. But some other diseases will destroy our soul, our emotions, our thought process. The moment we catch those types of diseases, you will see that we behave in certain way, right? So and also, when we talk about diseases, we have two types of diseases. Some diseases are contagious and some diseases are non-contagious. And even those who are contagious, it becomes pandemic. What happened right now is this disease of superiority became contagious and pandemic. And those who are carrying these types of diseases, they don't understand that they have these types of disease. In fact, what happened is these types of people, they carried out some dangerous act not knowingly. Why? Because this disease exists and they're spreading to others. And also they're carrying out, for example, that police who killed George Floyd, he was one person, but three other people, other police officers standing there looking and doing nothing. Don't you think that this is a disease which spread to other people, and others, those standing there, they accept this one? Obviously, that is one of the roots, and we have to take out. For example, you go to Subhanallah, Palestine, Brother Hashim mentioned beautifully, more than 7 decades. Racism is happening, discrimination, injustice, occupations, annexation, each and every day, against the law of international and so on and so forth. With all of that, no one is talking. Why? Because this pandemic disease is there, and all those politicians, those who sit, those who are carrying the banner of human rights, they don't even precise, they don't think, because they are the ones who are promoting or spreading these types of diseases. Why? Because these people, they have that. If the Second World War was one prime example, they should learn not to do the same thing to others. Right now, what our Hitler did, they're doing worse than that, are equal to that. And people, they're watching and clapping the hand and doing nothing. Why? Because this disease covers. That's first. Racism, roots of racism, one of that is because some people, they have this mentality of I'm superior to other people. Zionist agenda. superior to others. So this exists, and you can see that huge problem. Then the second one is very, very important to understand that this, when we talk and discuss about the roots, the second roots come to our mind is when you have a misunderstanding, misconception, prejudgment, and looking half empty glass. How many times you see this pandemic disease happening around us to say that, you know what, for example, I want to live in a neighborhood which is predominantly Black people, African American. Why? Because we judge them and the perception that they are uneducated, they're violence, they're, I don't know, they don't have that, they use the drugs and all of that. Who is promoting that? Obviously, some agenda behind the scene, and that led for people to misjudge that, misunderstood and misconceptions. And then when they draw the conclusion, people say, okay, that's not a problem. If someone is not with our color, they can be, for example, eliminated, and we don't have the problem. The third one is obviously big political agendas. And when you have big political agendas, those who want to deviate all the mankind from the right path to the path no one can even imagine where we are going. As Brother Hash mentioned, subhanAllah, we are heading towards the down, the south, from the morals. Our morals are affected. And we are talking about surface and surface and surface. And that will not resolve any problem till we talk and discuss about the roots of that. Let me give you two beautiful examples in the event of Karbala. As brother mentioned, the event of Karbala is one of the manifestation of the beautiful mankind sacrifice like Imam Hussein, and from other side Yazid, the one who wants to use the force and power to manipulate people and to demonstrate the evil act. So in that event of Ashura, we have two personalities. One is Wahhabi Kalabi, the white, the one who was just convert to Islam with the hand of Imam Hussein. He was a Jew and his mother, his wife, was a Christian, right? So Wahhabi Kalabi, a white man in among the Arabs. The second one is John, the black slave, right? So later on, Noble Prophet of Islam and Imam Ali, they freed, and he was equal to all other companions. But in the event of Karbala, when Shamr and the soldiers of Yazid, they saw these two people, they said that, wow, this is the best time for us Arab, those who have a superior mentality, and we are superior to other people, to take advantage of these two examples, and we can take advantage of this and to provoke the feelings of the people, prejudice among the people. And they launched that, and they succeeded for a time being, saying that this Wahhabi Kalabi is not among us. He does not deserve to be, for example, like that. And also John. So you will see that John and Wahhab, both of them, they paid a huge price because one was white, one was black. Nonetheless, why this happened? Because either political agendas behind the scene, like Muawiyah, Bani Umayyah they had, or pre-judgment, misconception, or misunderstanding, not knowing other people, or feeling that I'm a super to other people, superiority. So these are the three main elements will going to cause huge damage. That's why even Quran says, Ya ayyuhan nas inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha wa ja'alnakum shu'uban wa qaba'ila lita'arafu inna akramakum 'inda Allahi atqakum. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, indeed, we created you from one source, male and female. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's plan to make among the people different colors, tribes, different languages, so we can recognize each other. We're not identical to each other, but we are what? Creatures to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are mankind. That's why when Imam Ali Islam, he saw that some of the people, group of the people are standing, those who used to be a prominent member, the members of the community, of the Muslim community, the time of Imam Ali Islam, those who used to have a status quo, all of that, they came to Imam Ali Islam and he gave the same share as the slaves. When people, they complain that, wow, he is not close to us, equal to us. I'm a Muslim, I'm a free man, and Arab, and I'm from the tribe of Bani Hashim, whatever. Imam Ali Islam, he said that it doesn't matter. People are two kinds, two types. Either they are equal in creation or they are brother in faith. But in either cases, there is no way that Ali can discriminate people. So Imam Ali is fighting from the beginning with this pandemic disease that can be contagious and dangerous for the mankind. Today, a group of people, they can do certain things against, for example, other minorities. And once they become majority, they can execute the same thing. We saw that, for example, Brother Hashim mentioned a beautiful point about Shaykh Malcolm X, and also he was part of the Nation of Islam. And one of the element for the Nation of Islam is to create the same prejudice, right? Or for example, right now, what is happening here? Everywhere, brothers and sisters, very important that we have to be vigilant. We should not go with the flow of those who wants to control us. We need to open our eyes. We need to see the roots of that. And we need to tackle the problem to the roots. And we need to take out the weeds from its roots to have a good result. If we will see the good result in the future, we can have one mankind, humanity. Whether you're black, you're white, any other color, regardless of your gender, regardless of faith, regardless of where you are located. So at that time, you can see that alhamdulillah, mankind is progressing. Otherwise, back then, it was a slavery. Right now, the slavery has a different type. Subhanallah, slavery doesn't have a special color. Slavery is one of the pandemic diseases, and people, they can take advantage of that time after time for their own benefits. So therefore, I would like to urge all of you, brothers and sisters, not to see the surface of that, not to be more emotional for one incident. Yes, these types of incidents should give us more understanding, ideas, what to do, and fix our problem within the Muslim community, out of the Muslim community. When we are standing, we need to see what are the problems we have in terms of the racism, in terms of inequality, in terms of not having justice, and so on and so forth. And once we take out that, we see everyone, subhanAllah, in the time of Imam Hussain is a beautiful example on the day of Ashura. When he's standing, he had the black like Joan, he had a white like Wahab Kalabi, he had the Arab people, he had Iranians, he had Ajam, he had everyone, and none of the people, they felt that anyone is superior to other people. All of them, they're equal. And once you create this beautiful atmosphere, you're not going to have these problems. Otherwise, you're going to have repeated problems. Why? Because we're tackling to the branches of the problem. No, we cannot only focus on the branches of the problem. We need to take out from its roots. That's where we can, inshallah, have a better. I would like to again thank on behalf of SABA, on behalf of the whole Bay Area community, solidarity and help towards our brothers and sisters, African American, towards brothers and sisters, Hispanic, and everyone. Why? Because we believe that no matter you're white, you're black, you're any other color, regardless of gender, regardless of your faith, we have to stand as a one unit, as a one single human being. And with that, we can have, inshallah, better result. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of us. Thank you, Zah.
Thank you, Malana Abdi.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.
Mashallah. And thank you so much to both speakers. I appreciate Brother Hashim's history lesson on African American liberation and the movement, and Malcolm X's story is so powerful every time. I'm always inspired by his thought-provoking words of wisdom, which are evidently still so relevant to this day. Thank you, Malana Abdi, for giving us an incredible perspective. It's important that we look inwards as we are also looking outwards. Let us thank our speakers with sending divine blessings upon the Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt. Please recite from your homes as we recite on Zoom. A salawat.
Allahumma
All right. So now we'll be getting into the question portion of the event. So please feel free to send on the YouTube chat, or you can go ahead and give it to Google Voice. The phone number once again is 510-497-4972. So while those questions will be filtering in, yes, the phone number is right there. So while the questions are filtering in, I'll go ahead and start us off with a question about action. So these are for both of the speakers, free to speak on it if you'd like. So my question is, there are a lot of actions and opportunities and ways to get involved. So which do you recommend we prioritize first?
Malana, you can go first.
Brother Hashim is good. You can go ahead. Go ahead, Hashim.
Were you gonna go? Or did you want me to go?
Please go ahead.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First of all, I would say that there's a lot of different actions that people can take and everything, but I guess, Zahra, can I ask you a question? Do you think the person wants to understand what kind of actions can we take dealing with racism in general, or what kind of actions can we take now during this event going on?
I mean, it is a very broad question, so I definitely understand how we can scope it out. But I think currently right now, a lot of people, with everything happening and all the petitions and donations that are happening, I think people want to understand what they can do right now from their homes, given the situation, on how they can further help, how they can, have access to this stuff, how they can educate other people.
Okay. I would say, one, educate yourself, have sit-ins and learn. There's movies you can watch, there's things you can do. But I would really say, if it wasn't coronavirus, I get it. If you have fears of the pandemic, then obviously don't do this. But at some of these protests, if the Muslims were to go out, right, and the Muslims would go out and they were like a lot of us, and they had one with hijab and brothers dressed in Islamic gear, just to be out there and supporting it, it is powerful. And it's ironic because every year the Shias want to do some jalous. Let's go downtown. Let's do a jalous. Okay, well, guess what? The non-Muslims doing the jalous. Maybe it's not free Mama saying. So bring a jalous to there and teach people like Mama saying, because we should take an opportunity during this phenomenon to educate non-Muslims about the human rights revolutions of our imams and let them learn about Islam. If they don't become Islam, that's fine. Allah makes Muslims. But at least, inshallah, Allah will have them learn and they will become allies and friends of Muslims and realize that we're not terrorists. So I would say that in this current environment, whenever there's a protest, to go out in groups, not as individuals. Individuals are all right, but go out as groups collectively and go out there and say, look, we're for human rights and we're for justice, and that's part of our religion, and pass out things about Imam Hussein alayhi salam.
So thank you, Brother Hashim. Just would like to add a few more points. As Brother Hashim mentioned, we have to take action, and also we have to educate ourselves. We also have to be very vigilant not to engage or support any act which can go against us. We believe in the principles of Islam, whether looting or any other things. That's a general point. But beside that, brothers and sisters, very important that we need to focus on the roots of that. How we can focus on the roots of that is very important. First and foremost, we have to see that this action is not a surface and is not carried out for no reason or without any background, has a background to it. So it means we as a humanity, when we are dealing with, for example, pandemic situation of coronavirus, we are thinking to have what preventive things, which is going to be vaccine. So that vaccine can give us a better understanding. I think these protests or these, what are the petitions you have, if that can lead to have a vaccine, not to carry out these types of act, we are good. Otherwise, if it's not going to lead to the vaccine and just we are spinning around, it's going to be a temporary fix. It's not going to be a permanent fix.
Okay, thank you so much to both speakers for mentioning all of this. So our next question that was given in by the comments, this is mainly directed towards Brother Hashim. So can you speak on the Juneteenth? What is it and what does it mean for the greater community?
Actually, I don't know, that person might be from Texas or Richmond, but Juneteenth is a time when African Americans who were released from slavery in Texas, obviously the white man didn't tell them they was free and kept them in captivity for another year, and then they found out they were free on Juneteenth. And so some African Americans celebrate Juneteenth as a day of emancipation when it really was the day that they were informed of it. But it really, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't celebrate. I mean, you know, so we ain't free still. But you know, if some people want to learn more about it, it's a celebration that African Americans use. But I think there are other celebrations that African Americans do that are probably more significant, like Black August. You can look up on the internet, but Black August is a time when we remember the martyrdom and assassination of Comrade George Jackson, Jonathan Jackson, the Attica riots, and a lot of things that happened to Black liberation struggle people in that time frame. So Black August is another time that people recognize those who fought for justice. You know, whereas Juneteenth is like, you know, celebrating the fact that, oh, we didn't know.
Very interesting. Okay, so the next question is, we have Nowruz celebrations in our centers. Is it time to consider having some commemorations by and for the Black community in our centers as well? Just like you said, Brother Hashim, about Black August, should something like that, or something that commemorates the Black community, should that be more instilled into our communities as a whole?
Yes, can me or both of us?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Who's the question for?
It's for both of you guys.
Go ahead, Mohan. I just spoke.
So thank you, brother. I think in order to, instead of having a commemoration from Black or white or this and that, it's better to have a commemoration or some program for Shahid Malcolm X. So we can take advantage of that and we can talk and discuss about that, because that's how we can evolve and we can have a better result. So I encourage all the brothers and sisters to think, to have a good programs and commemorations for Shahid Malcolm X, or like these personalities, those who gave their life, to have that in our calendars, in our centers, that this day is dedicated to this event, and with that event we can talk and discuss about the very problems which mankind are facing.
Brother Hashim, I believe you're on mute.
There you go.
There
my dumb self. I was saying that for those who, maybe there's people listening, like I had, like, I don't know if you guys know Sheikh Harun, Sheikh Tariq Amr, and Munir. A lot of us converts one time at UC Berkeley, we had what's called a Shabbat Ashura. So the night before Ashura, the day we all came together, actually Professor Ali, he did poetry, and the late Ismail, may Allah have mercy on himself, and we remember 72 martyrs who died either as Muslims or non-Muslims fighting for justice. So what we did was we incorporated looking at social justice of all different cultures and races within the night of Ashura. So I think that if we can find times within Muharram and during Ashura to have a day or a night where we recognize other cultures, not just Blacks, and the trials and tribulations, then it helps us to unify, it helps us to come together, it helps to recognize the beauty of Shahada in fi sabilillah.
Yes, I think that's an incredible idea. And I think that implementing these type of things into our communities will not only help us grow stronger bonds with other communities, but also just in general, make more connections further on. So the next question is, you mentioned racism in other countries. Why is it helpful to look at racism in other countries? And this can be for both of you guys.
Yeah, basically, this racism has no borders. And we can learn from each other, because the roots of the racism is the same. is not two different rules. So that's why it's very important that when we talk and discuss about inequality or racism or injustice, this is a pandemic worldwide for everyone. It's not for one region or religion or culture or gender. No, that doesn't have anything like that. So I would like to again quote the Dr. MLK's quotation that if you see anywhere injustice, it will be threat to justice everywhere around the globe. So this, these types of things has no borders. That's why we cannot close our doors, our minds, our hearts that only I want to see my own community. There's nothing like that, because we as a mankind, we have to see the global vision, but we have to learn from each other and we have to follow our own duties and responsibilities. Again, Brother Hashim, you're...
Yeah, I'll take it off. I said, I would say that in, kind of paraphrasing what Malala had said earlier, but just looking at different dynamics, that in the Quran, Allah says, told the angels, I'm going to create a vice regent on the earth, right? And he created Adam, right? And then he told everybody in the Malikic stage and the angelic stage to bow down. He said, all bow down except Iblis. But the reason Iblis bowed down is deep to me. He says in it, he says, I am better than him. See, Quran says, so this is the first racist in the world. He said, I'm better than him. But that is beyond race. That means culture, that means language, that means anything that makes you think you're istikbar, you have better than somebody else. We have to deal with racism as far as white people over people of color concerned, because that is historically something that has transpired. But there was a time when black people were over white people, were more dominant over other people. So if we have to realize that as the shift changed, the essence of superiority has not. So the superiority complex of the shaitan has to be addressed globally. And in many ways, we cannot say, well, black people, it doesn't exist for blacks and whites. It does. But we must recognize that this istikbar and this arrogance can exist in different dynamics. I mean, let's be very clear here. The problem, people always say, well, people were against Bilal because he was black. It's kind of false and not true. Why? Because technically everybody in Arabia would be considered black in America. But it had to do with, he was a little shadier. Like, there are people who, you guys are at Indo-Pac, right? I can go to South India and find a Dravidian who's blacker than me, but he's still not considered black in America. So it's not an issue of color, it's an issue of differences. Salman al-Farsi was screaming against because he was Fars. And so we have to fight, like Moran was saying, against that, understanding the global aspect of discrimination in all aspects of it and how we deal with people. And I'll end with this. I was protesting one time, and I learned a lesson Allah sent to me, where I was working with all these people against the war in 91. And we worked with the LGBT community. They didn't call it that back then, but the gay people, right? And there was an African-American said she was gay, and I didn't really talk to her because I had nothing in common to talk to her about, right? But she was part of the coalition. But she sat next to me in class too. And one day she says, can I ask you a question? I said, what? She said, why don't you talk to me? You don't talk to me because I'm gay, Hashim? I'm like, yeah, basically, right? And she says, well, I got a question. You always talk to me about Islam. Why do you think I wouldn't be interested in learning about Islam? And she was correct. That I allow my prejudices not to do dawah to somebody who may have been looking for Islam. So I discriminated because I allowed myself not to see that Allah says do dawah. And then I realized Prophet Allah did dawah to the people. Allah punished them. We must find ourselves to be the most we do not discriminate with anybody when it comes to teaching La ilaha illallah Muhammad.
Yes, 100%. I definitely agree with both of the points you guys made. They're very, very insightful. Okay, so the next question, it's mainly towards Brother Hashim. What major figures in the BPP movement were Muslim? Did any of them associate themselves with the Ahlul Bayt?
It's funny you say that. I don't know, maybe that person knows it, but hang on for a minute. All right, the reason I say that is because I'm sitting in my room right now, and on my floor in front of me, there's a lot of people who are Muslims. You had Zayd Malik Shakur, right? The whole Shakur, Tupac's family belonged to an organization called the Deen Alahi. They were Muslims, right? You had Jalil Abdul Mutakim, Seiko Deen. So there's a lot of Muslims I can go on and talk about, but there are a lot of Muslims. But the one I want to focus on is interesting. Is I have a friend of mine, Kamal Bell. His father, Herman Bell, just got released from prison. He was part of the Black BLA and the BP, Black Panther Party. And his mother used to write letters to a brother named Nu Abdul Qayyum. His name was Noah Abdul Qayyum. And sorry, it's crazy. And so he wrote these letters to his mother, who's a Jewish lady. It was interesting. And when his mother died, she had all these books and letters. And he said, I don't want to throw them away, Hashim, they're Muslim books, right? And I'm like, well, what does it say on it? He says, let me read it to you. He says, some book called, and here it is. He said, Najah Balaga. I'm like, huh? Najah Balaga? I said, what's the other book? He says, Safahiyya Sajadiyya. I'm like, uh-huh. He said, he got a bunch of books by some guy named Mutahari. And so I come to find out that Brother Noah, who died in 2002, was a Shia. And there's Shia activists, prisoners, African-American, who when they get to jail, they learn. So yes, there are a lot out there, and there's a lot going on. The other person I would say people know is that here's a book. This is Yuri Kuchiyama, pound for pound, the best activist woman in my life that I ever known of, Japanese woman. And guess what? Many people don't know that she took Shahada with Safiya Bukhariya, and she changed her name to Fatima. And she died. And she's one of the biggest activists. Look her up, Yuri Kuchiyama. I know her daughter. I mean, incredible. And just so you can know, she has one blessing that all of us never had. She put her mouth and tongue to that of a Shaheed, because she's the first person to jump up on stage, and you can see in Life magazine trying to give Malcolm X mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, trying to keep him alive. Her name was Fatima. So there are a lot of people who are in the struggle, but the problem is a lot of them is that they were in the development stage of Islam, and it's our part to help them understand who Ahlul Bayt is, because a lot of the brothers and sisters, they just don't know Ahlul Bayt.
Right, definitely. This question is also directed to Brother Hashim once more. How do you and the African American community feel when you come to Shia centers that are predominantly South Asian or Iranian? What are some practical things a community can do to make more inclusive centers that welcome more African Americans?
You know, I would say so. I'll speak about African Americans, but I think it's just anybody who's not Indo-Pak is the problem. Not that I don't think it's an issue of Black. I think that it's different, but you know, and don't take this, people, y'all can kill me later if you want to, it's my observation, right? I say it all the time, so I'm not going to shy away from saying now. I say, if I go to a Sunni Pakistani mosque or a Shia Pakistani mosque, the treatment of Blacks is the same. Y'all got definitely agreement in one thing, maybe not Shias and Sunnis, but when it comes to other cultures that are foreign, it's interesting, it's the same. But what upsets me is I find the Hindus more active with Black African Americans than the Muslims, which is ironic because you'll find them, but they've dealt with racism in South India a lot of times. I mean, there's racism within India. I mean, I don't know why y'all need to come to America to figure it out. It's already there. You got dark-skinned Dravidians, you have untouchables, and Hinduism promoted it a lot. Islam purified it. But unfortunately, maybe some Muslims have not purified themselves enough from the older generation of Hindu ideas that are racist, and that's part of purification. So if you ask me, when African Americans come to the masjid, I think that like anybody, to know the beauty and what African Americans have contributed would make a person less likely to be racist. And I would say, and I have plenty of books here, Milana can speak on it, and I'm not lying, they might want to start off by looking at the fact that from Imam Jafar Sadiq to Imam Mahdi, the mothers were Black African Nubians, therefore your imams are African. So if your imams are African, I don't know how you can be racist because, you know, as far as you know, George Floyd looked like he had the complexion of one of our imams. So I think that it's a lack of understanding our own religion and understanding racism. But remember this, our imams suffered from racism. There's Hadith in Al-Kafi where they said Imam Jawad's skin was so black, it was defective. They said, we never had an imam like that. And the Imam Alayhi Salam comes back and says, my father, the prophet said, the best of my children will come from Nubian slave women. Well, Nubia is in Africa. But again, Blackness in America is not about skin color, because imams can be light as me, as dark as me. Just like in India, you have lighter Indians and darker Indians. It's about also understanding the culture. So sharing cultures for tolerance for all people, not just Blacks, in the masjid, I think is important.
Definitely. And I think that if we label ourselves as people who are inclusive and, you know, scope out the community, we should also do those actions as well.
I would like to move on to the question that I think I would like to hear his response. I mean, he has to deal with that on a daily basis more than me.
Mm-hmm. Well, Anab, did you have any thoughts on this as well about being more inclusive with our community besides having Desis and Iranis, to have more for the Black community and other communities?
Thank you. Sometimes the word also, I don't like the words also, inclusive. When we say inclusive, I'm better and just I want to include. No, there is no inclusiveness. It's equality. I mean, once we reach to a point that there's no difference between any ethnic gender, you know, anyone, that is the healthy society. So just take the example of the time of Noble Prophet of Islam. Noble Prophet of Islam, he created a beautiful community where Bilal was the spokesperson of Islam, the same Bilal who was a slave a few days back. So then he was considered as not only inclusive in the society, no, he is the prominent member and spokesperson of Islam. So that's why, alhamdulillah, SABA's policy and every center's policy should be one thing. This center is a center for haqq and truth, Ahlul Bayt, period. Nothing else. Yes, sometimes we have a languages. That language is to have emotional attachment, but nothing else. That's why even we have to open our hearts, our minds, and our society. That's why you see, for example, in our teachers, we have teachers from all backgrounds. In our board, we have a youth, we have and so on and so forth. We need to have a good combination in our centers. No one should feel that I was singled out or I was alien here and or I am not welcome. We need to create that. We have a long way to go, but we need to create that inshallah in our society.
Inshallah.
Inshallah, definitely. So the next question is, and this is for both of the speakers, can you speak about Imam Khomeini and his contributions to the movement? In addition, what roles did the Ahlul Bayt play in supporting Africans?
Imam Khomeini or in Africans or the Imams? Which one?
I think it's two separate questions. Yeah.
Okay.
So the first question is speaking on Imam Khomeini and the contributions he made to the movement during his time. And then the next question is, how did the Ahlul Bayt play in the role of supporting Africans?
I mean, the Ahlul Bayt are Africans. I mean, you can look at every book of fiqh. I mean, a history. And remember this though: when you say Africa, the problem, and this is language again. What is Africa? Because some people, Saudi, I mean, Africa is right across the water from Jeddah. Is right across. I mean, it's just we're using language of our oppressors again. Like Saudi Arabian people is Africans, right? I mean, they call Pakistanis niggas in English. I'm sorry the word. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like we all people of color, I guess. So when we say that, we keep forgetting that there's different. That we're all people of color, and the English, the British, they didn't put like. Here's something funny. Do you know what they call they call black people in South Africa? Kafirs. Kafir is the word for, I mean, kafir, y'all kafirs, y'all calling the black people kafirs. So if you look at India and you look at Africans, okay, here's a question. Are Khojas Africans too? They lived in India, Africa. I mean, these are African people because they have a context of Africa. If we look in South Africa, when Nelson Mandela was on Robben Island, there were Indian brothers and sisters with Nelson Mandela fighting against apartheid. They Africans. So to me, there's always this African connection of unity. This generation is losing because they don't know the history of how people have worked together. Now, as far as Imam Khomeini is concerned, like I mentioned, the things he had done already for black people, but I'll tell you this for that. One time we were in Qum, in my shop, and we said in my shop, he said, hey man, we got some books on black people and Farsi. So they ran down to the library for Imam Rida, and he brought back in Farsi a book called Soledad Brothers. And I didn't even cry. He's like, this is by George Jackson, one of the biggest revolutionaries who fought and sent for prisoners' rights, right? Hey, what was his book doing in my show? Imam Rida. I'm like, all places. So I think what the Iranians have done is they have always identified with all peoples of struggle. And if you look what the Rashbar said recently about what's going on in America, it shows that. It's consistent with Imam Khomeini, Shahi Mutahari. All of them were in globalist and international revolutionaries. They didn't pick, right? But I'll say this real quick. It's interesting. When Sayyid Khamenei came to America and spoke at the United Nations in '87, many of y'all might not have been born there. He spoke United Nations. Then he went to Ted Koppel. He was on TV. He made a statement. He said America cannot tell Iran nothing about their problems until they stop the oppression of blacks in Washington, D.C. He said, black people are right there in D.C. in front of the White House, and you can't help the black people? He said, don't speak to me about nothing about Iran. So they have always been at the forefront of revolutionary and helping people oppressed of all colors, even white oppression. You know what I'm saying? In America. I mean, in the world. So, you know, I'm saying Khamenei gave a dua for Sayyid Shaheed Malcolm X. So they're there and they happen to be a government, but I do believe there are other people around the world, in Pakistan, India, all over, who have always unified, you know what I'm saying, and working for human rights. We just don't talk about it because we divide ourselves with our language.
So I think just I would like to add a few points. Brother Hashim, what he said, you can take the example of Sheikh Zakzaki in Nigeria and the movement of Sheikh Zakzaki and how he was treated even within the own, the one country, which all of them are black, but the way they treated Sheikh Zakzaki and how they singled out him and so on and so forth, just because he was affiliated to the movement of Imam Khomeini. That shows that the support and great vision of Imam Khomeini. And here, when you talk and discuss about our Imams, just let me bring this up also. It's good that 4 of our Imams, their mother were from Africa, as Brother Muhammad mentioned, either from Noba, which which is also Morocco, or from Ethiopia, or Sudan, or Nigeria. So you can see that 4 of our mothers, of our Imams, are not from Arab, or not from Quraysh, right? And also the other, the one mother of our Imam, 12 Imams' mother is from the Europe, from Rome, right? And then you have the 4th Imam's mother, she is from Iran. So it's a beautiful combination. So that itself shows that our Imams, they had no prejudice, and they had no these types of superiority. In fact, they used to promote that, and we can see the example of the Prophet or the Shuhada of Karbala and so on.
Definitely. Thank you so much for both of you guys for speaking on this. I'm really sorry we have to kind of wrap it up. We're kind of running out of time. So unfortunately, if I did not get to your question, I do apologize, but inshallah, this has really opened the doors for many different conversations now, and we will hold much more events in the future. So again, thank you both, Maulana Abdi and Brother Hashim, for educating us today about the history of the African-American liberation in this country and the role that we play perpetuating stereotypes in our community. Alhamdulillah that we have had this opportunity to express our outrage and inshallah increase our righteous anger at oppression through becoming informed. To conclude, we must remember the African-American names that have been lost at the hand of police brutality and racism. Just to name a few: Trayvon Martin, 17 years old, murdered while walking home from a convenience store. Tamir Rice, 12 years old, murdered by a police officer for holding a toy gun. Oscar Grant, 22 years old, murdered by police at Fruitvale BART station in Oakland, California. Michael Brown, 18 years old, murdered by police. Sandra Bland, 28 years old, murdered by police after being stopped while driving. Philando Castillo, 32 years old, murdered at a routine traffic stop. Eric Garner, 44 years old, choked to death by police while outside of a convenience store. Tatiana Jefferson, 28 years old, killed by the police in her own home. Breonna Taylor, 26 years old EMT, killed by the police while sleeping in her own home. Ahmaud Arbery, 25 years old, murdered while running in his neighborhood. And George Floyd, 46 years old, murdered by police officers outside of a convenience store. Not only is racism a threat to people's lives, it also stands as a threat to the moral livelihood of every person in this society. It is simply not an ideology or an affliction of the psyche. It is a systematic issue that has kept people out of power and unequally consolidated power in an oppressive class. As Muslims, it is our duty to stand up when we see any injustices. The struggle to end racism is a moral, ethical, and political issue. As a community of Shias in the 21st century, we are aware of our ancestry and how we hail from the greatest of standards for human rights and morality. Our Ahlul Bayt has shown us true justice in the face of oppression. Islam has no room for racism, and neither should our community here in the Bay Area. As a community, we all belong to various different ethnic backgrounds, but being diverse is not enough. It is our moral obligation to not only denounce racism, but to earnestly speak, think, and act to end injustice. We express our unyielding solidarity with the national and global protesters standing up for their right to live and their right to exist without being unjustly murdered. Please do not let this day of outrage be the only time you expose yourself to these types of conversations on engaging in this type of action. Please join us with your hearts, words, and actions to continue to condemn police brutality and white supremacy, especially against the African American community. Use this opportunity to dismantle white supremacy in your own life and organizations. Commit to consistently addressing issues of racism that plague our community. To actively prepare for the Imam, it is not enough for us to not be racist. We must be actively anti-racist. Please see links below to sign petitions, as well as organizations we would greatly appreciate you donating to. The descriptions for each of the organizations are also provided. Thank you all for tuning in to our program, and inshallah, this is the first step in combating racism, but we have definitely got a long way to go. Please stay tuned for more planning, programs, and if you'd like to get involved with our initiative, please reach out. Thank you, and please recite a loud salawat for our community.
Allahumma salli ala
Muhammad.